Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Living Faith Homestead. Today we are going to get right into the scriptures, and we are on Genesis chapter 13. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the Negev. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold, and he journeyed on from the Negev as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first. And there Abram called upon the name of the Lord. And Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left." And Lot lifted up his eyes and saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, in the direction of Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself all the Jordan Valley, and Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the valley and moved his tent as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, "Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring can also be counted. Arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which are at Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. Chapter 14. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, these kings made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Sheember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. And all these joined forces in the valley of Sedom, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year he and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim and the Asheroth, Karnaim, the Zuzim, and Haim, the Emim, and Shevei Kirathim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to Kadesh and defeated all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who were dwelling in the Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out, and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with the king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Sedom was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the hill country. So the enemy took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his possessions, and went their way. Then one who had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, who was living by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and of Aner, these were allies of Abram, When Abram heard that his kinsmen had been taken captive, he led forth his trained men born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and defeated them, and pursued them to the Hobah north of Damascus. Then he brought back all the possessions, and also brought back his kinsman, Lot, with his possessions, and the women and the people. After his return from the defeat of the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Shaveh, that is, the king's valley, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram, by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons, but take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing but what the young men have eaten, and the share of the men who went with me. Let Adner, Eshcol, and Mamre take their share. Genesis chapter 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. This man shall not be your heir. Your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look toward heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and counted it to him as righteousness. And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans, to give you this land to possess. He said to him, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, cut them in half, and laid each half over against the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. And when birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram, and behold, dreadful and great darkness fell upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for yourself, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age. And they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your offspring I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Genesis chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant, it may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abraham, her husband, as a wife. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to to your embrace. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, Behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring, so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord had listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are a God of seeing, for she said, Truly here I have seen him who looks after me. Therefore the well was called Ber Lahai Roi. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son who Hagar bore Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abraham. Okay, so we got through 4 chapters today, and that was really good. So I know I really butchered that king's name, and I forgot, which king was it? Chedorlaomer? I don't know. Not sure how to pronounce that one, but anyway, I wanted to mention something that is really, really important when you're reading the Bible. So you really need to kind of understand the Hebrew culture to understand a lot of what is going on. I've studied like Middle East culture and early biblical culture, the Hebrew culture, a lot, and like things that didn't make sense in the Bible before, like I was like, once I started learning and studying, I was like, oh wow, that now totally makes perfect sense. So anyway, there were some things when the Lord said to Abram, you know, lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, eastward and westward, for all the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. He says, I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring can also be counted. He also told him to arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. So in Hebrew culture at that time, and it's probably still a Middle Eastern culture thing, but God had told Abraham to walk the perimeter of his land, of the land that he was given. So he must have walked for a while, because it was the whole land of Israel. So God promised to give him this land. And the reason why was that it was just tradition. There was culture. It was like if Abraham walked the perimeter of that land, then it was considered his. It was like a contract, so to say. So that's basically why God had told him to do that. And there were other people dwelling in the land at the time. So those other people were not very pleased probably with Abraham, because they knew what he was doing, because it was part of their culture. And so they probably weren't very happy about that, but Abraham obeyed God and he did it anyway. So then there was another part where Abram heard that Lot had been taken captive, him and his household. So Abraham he had led forth his trained men born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan to rescue Lot. So these were 318 people born in Abram's household. So they were slaves, but like they weren't slaves in the tradition that we as Americans think of slaves. They weren't beaten. They weren't, they were actually part of the clan. They were like considered part of the family. They were loved. They were respected. And after 7 years, they had the option to leave if they wanted to. And many of them, most of the time, they didn't leave because they grew to be a part of that family. It wasn't like, I'm your slave master, kind of, I'm going to beat you and you're going to work like a dog type thing for me. It was more, you're part of my family. So just understanding a little bit of the Hebrew culture in biblical times just makes like all these facts just really, really cool to learn. So another really cool thing is in Genesis chapter 15, where God tells Abraham, look towards heaven and number the stars if you're able to number them. Then he said, so shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness. So because Abraham believed what God had said, believed God's promises, God counted it to Abraham as righteousness. But it's really interesting because he told Abraham that his offspring would be number the stars. If you can count them, which we all know we can't count them. So who are all of these offspring? Are they just the Jews? Are they just Abraham's household? Are they just the people who live in Israel? No. They're actually you and me and anyone else who is a believer in Jesus, who is saved by the grace of God. So we are all Abraham's descendants, those who are believers anyways. But I just thought that was really cool, and I really just thought that if you get some time to start studying like the early biblical culture, the Hebrew culture, like it's really, really interesting stuff. Like you just learn so much, and it's just really cool. Like you're just like, wow, And one site that I really love that teaches so much like culture of that time period is TorahClass.com. I know he has a YouTube channel. It's Tom Bradford, but he teaches a lot on the Old Testament and on the New Testament too, but mostly he does a lot on the Old Testament. Like he goes through the book chapter by chapter by chapter, and he just gives you all this amazing information about the different cultures. So if you'd like to learn more, definitely go check him out, and you will not be sorry, because I just can't get enough of his wisdom and his knowledge that he has gotten from God. So anyway, I'm going to cut this off now, and I really thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and like this video, and I will see you again in the morning. Thanks for watching.